Six Nations round number 2, folks. Ireland and Italy. A little bit of extra spice in this game because of the way the results panned out in round number 1. Ireland, with that loss to France, have got the pressure on them. Andy Farrell suddenly having to defend his selections, and there's a fair bit of negativity around the press, so could certainly use a bit of a feel-good win. For the Italians, they obviously want to show that beating Scotland is not the limit of their capabilities. They will want to step up and prove they can go toe-to-toe with the Irish, but their record against the Irish in the Six Nations is not great, and they are without one of their key men. But we'll go through the squads which have been named, some of the stats, predictions. You guys can let us know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. Andy Farrell's Ireland side. He's made some changes that I'm pretty chuffed with. Some of these guys I've been dead keen to see get a go or another go in Irish green, and he's made some of them. Like the front row is unchanged, Lockman, Sheehan and Clarkson. Steady as she goes. Be nice to see Sheehan kind of run riot for a bit, if weather permits. There are a couple of prop changes with O'Toole and Furlong coming in on the bench. Hopefully Furlong is as close enough to 100% as can be. And Ronan Kelleher continues as the hooker replacement. So starting guys unchanged. A couple of changes on the bench. Big physical looking couple of locks with McCarthy and James Ryan. So you get the feeling Andy wants to take it to the Italians physically, because why else would you pick those two guys? Tyke Byrne is on the bench. And they've got Cormac Ezechuku at number 6. I love that selection. That guy is such a fun guy to watch. He's kind of rangy. He's more skillful than the average kind of lock loose forward player. He's dynamic on the carry, can win line-out ball, and he might have to with Byrne, because Byrne was your main line-out operator last week with Byrne on the bench. Maybe Cormac is in there partly for that role, but geez, I'm excited to see how he goes. Caelan Doris shifts to number 7 this week. He's still captain, and then Jack Conan is at number 8. So I expect a lot of big physical carries from the Irish pack. They are going to want to grind the Italians. They're going to want to hold possession and just arm wrestle them out of the game. In the backs, Craig Casey gets a crack at number 9, so Gibson Park, who didn't maybe get as much of the spotlight put on him. All the spotlight went on Sam Prendergast and his missed tackles, but Gibson Park also missed 5. Prender missed 7, but yeah, it wasn't a great defensive shift from either 9 or 10 for Ireland last week. So Casey gets a crack alongside Prendergast, who is backed to have another go this week. He'll be maybe a little bit happy that Menoncello's not in the number 12 jersey, but they might kind of shift the guys around. We'll get to the Italians in a second, because Prendergast was put under a lot of pressure by Moafana last week from especially line-out play. They just ran so many line-out plays straight up Sam's channel. 12 and 13 is still McCloskey and Ringrose, and then the wings. James Lowe comes back in. Big old boot. I think that's the main reason you pick him these days. Big old boot. They want to kick the ball down the Italians' throats and force them back, basically. That's got to be the key reason to pick James. And then Ballacoon at the other end of the scale, lightning quick. So excited for Rob Ballacoon. The guy just seems to be a little bit injury prone, and that he can't get like a full season of games without sitting on the sidelines for a while. I really hope he has that clean bill of health for a good period, and can put his hand up regularly for Irish selection, because he's another one who's like deceptively quick, because he's a big rangy guy as well. Yeah, but he is lightning again. As Andy Farrell said, he's not just pace. He can bust tackles and he can offload and whatnot as well. Jamie Osborne continues at fullback. Bench-wise, apart from the front rowers, which I've already mentioned, Edwin Adogbo going to get his debut. A lot of excitement around this guy from Munster, and I think Ireland supporters generally. He looks a big physical guy. So this is what I'm talking about. You got James Ryan, Joe McCarthy, and Edwin Adogbo all on the same side, plus Ezechuku and Tyke Byrne. It's a lot of big units. So very chuffed to see how he goes. I think Andy Farrell was trying to temper expectations a little bit by saying it's still kind of about potential for him at this point. And then Nick Timoney is the other forward. So it's just the 2 backs on the bench for this one. Timoney was great from the bench last week. He topped the run meters for Irish forwards, and he was on the bench for it. So limited time, but good impact from him. Scored a try. Gibson Park and Crowley are your 2 back replacements. So honestly, Ballacoon, Edogbo, Ezechuku, I love all of those selections. Yeah, let's get these guys into it and see how well the Irish respond after last week's disappointment. For the Italians, they've kept things remarkably stable. Why would you change it if you got a good shift out of the guys last week? The front row of Fischetti, Nicotera and Ferrari, they were cracking against the Irish scrum. Can they put a kind of less than full strength? You know, there's no starting Furlong, there's no starting Porter. Irish scrum under a bit of pressure. They did it against like Xander Fagerson, who was initially called up to the British and Irish Lions last year. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, Ferrari was man of the match without touching the bloody ball last week. That's how good he was at scrum time and defensively. Nicola Canone and Andrea Zamburin are a couple of big units in themselves. Canone made 26 tackles last week against the Scots. He was an absolute machine. Remembering the Italians don't mind playing without the ball. It requires guys with big heart and commitment to put in defensive shifts. Nicola Canone is one of those guys, and then Zamburin, the other big lump, was pretty good at line-out time. Like in those really wet conditions, the Italian line-out was functioning very well. Lamaro, Zuliani, and Canone, that's Lorenzo, the back row, again, unchanged. Zuliani is such a threat at the breakdown. Lamaro made a bunch of tackles himself. He was also pretty adept at line-out time and disruptive of the Scottish line-out last week, and then Lorenzo Canone is in the similar role to Jack Conham. Carry and go forward ball over the advantage line. Backs wise, Fusco and Garbisi are your same 19 combo. Fusco was putting in quite a few box kicks, which the Italians initially, especially in the first kind of 50, 60 minutes of the game, were competing really well. I mean, you've got to look at their second try. Liner winning a high ball, sets up Menoncello out in the left wing. So look for that area to be put under a bit of pressure because the Irish were not that great under the high ball last week, to put it mildly. And they have made a change in the midfield. Unfortunately, Brex is out with family reasons, so it means Menoncello shifts to 13 and Marine is there at 12. I was expecting Menoncello all day at 12 to be running right up Sam Prendergast, but I mean, they still might do that if the guys kind of have a bit of fluidity about their roles, but Marine can bust tackles as well, but Menoncello is something else. He's had a bit of game time in Italy at 13 before, so it's not unfamiliar for him, but I would have rather him at 12. You miss something with that Brex-Menoncello combo, which has just played so much rugby together, they're almost like, you know, telepathically on the same page. So that is a blow, but it is the only kind of guy who drops out of the 23 from the starting guys last week. Ioane and Liner are on the wings, and then Pani, who came off the bench last week as fullback, starts as fullback this week. The bench, but Di Bartomelo, Spagnolo, and Hassa, same front rowers as last week, so no changes there. Ruzza and Favretto are the other two forwards who played last week, and they've added another one in Odiase. So they're bringing a little bit of the physicality as well with their selection, going with a 6-2 with Alessandro Garbisi and Paulo Odogwu as the two back replacements. So they played 5-3 last week against the Scots. They've gone for an extra forward this week against the Irish. So pretty stable, but Brex missing is a real big blow. Stats-wise, they're not pretty reading for Ireland against France last week. They allowed 13 line breaks. 13 is astronomically high in terms of Tier 1 against Tier 1 sides. And they were uncharacteristically starved of possession and territory. It is traditionally France, of the big teams, like if you're talking like top 5 teams or whatever, who don't mind playing without the ball. Ireland love to play with the ball. It's Andy Farrell's style, but no, they were starved of the ball last week, so it didn't fit with Andy's game plan, and they missed tackles, like 35 tackles. They were 81% last week, which is just not going to get the job done. They dropped a heap of ball as well. I personally can't see, despite all the doom and gloom around the Irish press, I can't see Ireland missing that number of tackles, dropping that much ball, and having that little possession in any game for the rest of the year. I don't see it happening. Maybe I'm naive and an eternal optimist, but I just don't see it happening. Just so many things went wrong. First half was a blitz for the French. Second half was more even. Maybe you could say the French took the foot off the gas a bit, but I can't see it happening again. It was just an awful, especially first half of rugby from Ireland. Italy, they regularly play with less possession territory, and the same was true against the Scots in that torrential rain, but they were able to hit them with their try-scoring opportunities. Interestingly, when it was still dry at the start of the game, they got one from a little kick through, and then they got one from, as I said, winning a high ball contest. So a couple of kind of quick-fire tries from the Italians, and then the try-scoring for them kind of dried up as the heavens opened. But their line-out, despite the fact it was raining torrentially. The lineup was cracking. I think they only let one go awry, and they didn't allow the Scots any line breaks. They tackled at 91%. Their defensive shift was like tier 1, almost perfection. Man, you can't get perfect, but it's bloody close. They did very, very well. They did allow 2 tries, but geez, they were defensively very, very sound. And they will need to be against the Irish, because the Irish record against the Italians is very, very good. The average score across the last 5 games, which Ireland have won all of, is 36 points to 12. So it's usually a pretty comfortable win for the Irish. The last time they were in Dublin was 36-0. The time before that, 33-17. Time before that, 57-6. So Dublin is not a happy hunting ground for the Italians. Last year was close, like 22-17 in Rome. But yeah, it's 2013, the one and only time we've seen the Italians beat the Irish in the Six Nations. So 2013, what were you doing in 2013? It is a long, long time ago. But hey, Italian rugby has had its kind of dips, and it is on the ascendancy at the moment. So this is a really interesting test for them to see where they are at. And the Irish are being accused of falling off a cliff at the moment. So again, interesting test for them as well. How are the predictions set to go? Well, the Irish are still heavy favourites, despite all the negative press. As I said, the bookies are saying by 17, and the Rugby Forecast algorithm goes a step further, saying by 22. So there's supposed to be 2 or 3 tries to the good, the Irish, and this one, it is on at Dublin on Saturday, 2:10 local kickoff. Scotswoman Holly Davison is the ref. It's 3:10 in the morning for me in New Zealand, which is a pretty awful kickoff time, but I will be getting up to watch it. You guys let us know your thoughts on the game. If you want to buy me a coffee or a beer, down in the description. I could use a beer right now because it is very muggy here in Auckland, or a coffee potentially for 3:10 in the morning on Saturday, or Sunday morning for me. But yeah, rank 5 in the world, Ireland. Rank 9, Italy. You guys let me know your thoughts on how you think this game is going to go. And I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.